Welcome to Eye on the Illini. This is Mike Kegley with the formerly absent Brad Sturdy, who was stuck in the midst of snowstorm recovery and lack of internet in the middle of central Illinois. Later on, we'll have Matt Stevens come on as well. Matt actually got I'm not certain if it's the honor or the privilege to go to Mackey Arena, but he was there, and we'll get his impressions on what I call the Keaton Wagler game. Brad, you obviously were prepping for all our podcasts and stuff like that. Go through some of what was going through your mind, because you've covered the Illini for 20 plus years. That's got to be one of the top moments you've seen as a media member.
Yeah, it's hard to beat that from an individual performance. I mean, to score 46 points on 17 shots against the top 5 team on the road, and probably the toughest place, in my opinion, and you've been there as well, Mike. Probably the toughest place to play on the road in the Big Ten is just stunning. There are so many superlatives that we could throw out there, but you just run out of things to say about this event. I watched the game twice this morning. I mean, that's scary, but I watched the actual replay, and then I watched the Big Ten and 60 thing with all the games. And it's just amazing the shots he was hitting. Crazy tough shots. But at the same time, he also was able to get to wherever he wanted to get. I mean, he's so poised and so under control. And we'll talk more about this later, but the way he was able to recognize what Purdue was doing defensively was special, especially, I thought, down the stretch.
Yeah, and I really found the chess game between him and Braden Smith interesting, because you could tell Braden was on the court, was figuring out what the Illini were trying to do. And there were several times that the way the play was designed was Braden was left in no man's land. There was nothing he could do, because he had to make a choice between, like, do I get this guy or do I get this guy? And I just thought that the war between the coaching staffs was really good. And I thought that Illinois, with the way Wagler was hitting shots, won the battle. And it was really a close one. But again, the way he was able to get he just reminded me yesterday of a taller Steph Curry.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, when you think about that, it was pretty interesting to see him. I mean, the pull-ups were so deep, and yeah, I mean, Steph Curry, I guess, but he's the other thing that he was so good at was that he was just, there was no, you mentioned like Curry, but there was nothing like fast. Like everything was just patient. And I think that's really impressive when you see a kid who's that patient and has that much poise as a freshman. So, yeah, I mean, you don't see that very often. I mean, Illinois had some, great freshmen, over the years, but I've never seen a kid do what he is doing, and also do it within kind of a team concept, in the sense that he doesn't just hunt shots. I mean, he's not a shot hunter. He's just a guy who just, they had a game plan. You could tell going in. They thought Purdue was going to switch those screens, and they were ready for it. And clearly either at the first media they made an adjustment, whatever. But they knew that Purdue was going to switch, and they knew they had a mismatch. And they I tell you what, they abused Oscar Clough. Oscar Clough was a -14 on the plus-minus for this game in 29 minutes. And if you watch how many times he scored on Oscar Clough and Trey Kaufman-Renn when those two guys were out there, it was just amazing how he just abused those guys.
And it was funny because Trey Kaufman-Renn played so angry, which normally I don't really care, because I think you got to, athletically, I think sometimes you got to play angry. But he was getting just frustrated to all get-go. Now, Clough, the one thing I was frustrated with him, and I don't know if you noticed this as well, but almost every time that Tomislav went up to set a pick, he would put that forearm in his back and then extend it out and push him in front of everybody, because it's 25 feet, as he's going to set that pick. it never got called one time, and I was just amazed that it was. I was just amazed that he was able to get away with that, and yet Illinois still ended up going to the free throw line more often than Purdue, which I'm trying to figure out how often that's happened in the last 50 years. I'll bet you not more than a handful.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often. But yeah, you're right. I mean, but it was. I'll be honest with you. There were some things both ways they missed. I thought Merkovich gets away with a lot of stuff. I mean, with he sets things up. I'm not saying he necessarily fouls, but he makes guys want to foul, or
Yes.
he kind of flops. And I hate to say that, but yeah. But I thought, overall, and I know people get mad and everybody blames the officials, this and that, but this, I didn't think this was a bad game. I don't think there's a game Illinois lost this year because of officiating.
I agree with that totally.
They lost Alabama because they couldn't make a free throw. And they almost did that again yesterday. I mean, that's the one thing kind of negative. They lost Nebraska because they couldn't get a stop. Couldn't guard them. And then they lost to UConn because they didn't play well, even despite what I thought was a horrid call on the three, the Hail Mary thing. They were still down 7 points with 2 minutes to go. You know what I mean? Right. So, I mean, yeah, let's not get, crazy there. But, they're in a great place. I mean, how Illinois won 9 in a row. Right? In 9 in a row, 17-3, 8-1 in the Big Ten. I mean, I don't know that you could have asked for a much better start. Although you think back and you say, well, they make free throws against Alabama and they close out Nebraska like they, or play a little defense against Nebraska, and suddenly they're 19-1. They're probably ranked second or third in the country, and we're all like, oh my gosh, they're undefeated in the Big Ten. But yeah, and we thought before the season, remember, Mike, we said that going into Purdue, we thought legitimately they could have been undefeated in Big Ten play.
Yep.
And that was our preseason prediction. And then we thought they'd lose at Purdue. So really, you're right where probably best case scenario, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, and look, this is the best record Brad Underwood's had at this point in the year. So during his tenure, and he's won quite a few games for the Illini, especially the last 7 years. You look at this team, and I want to go through real quick, just a couple of the stats. I'm struggling to find a time that a guy scored 46 points on 17 shots. I mean, you can speak to it as a longtime basketball coach, but that is just statistically, that is just unbelievable. And of course, setting the Illinois record with 9 made threes is one thing, but I think somebody made the statement on X that they said that, Keaton Wagler scored 46 points on 17 shots, and Andy Kaufman could score 17 points on 46 shots. And so I thought that was whoever, I can't remember who I read that scrolling through, but I thought that was one of the funniest statements I read. But can you remember anything like a 46 points on 17 shot attempts? Because nothing comes to mind for me on that.
I can't. I really can't. And it usually comes from a guy, getting a ton of free throws attempts, right? And he got a lot. He got 13. But I don't know that you rarely see somebody get this many points, because you not only have to get to the line, you also have to make a ton of threes to do this.
Yes.
And you have to be efficient. You have to make the shots too. I mean, I've seen guys take, 25 shots, think, wow, that's a great efficient game because you scored 25 or 46 points or 40 plus points on 25 shots. That's great. He did it on 17. I mean, that just doesn't happen. And I don't know how crazy that is. And the other part about it is he also had 4 assists. So he wasn't actually, it was funny. My wife happened to be this morning on the rewatch. She got the joy of watching the game. And she's not a huge basketball, she watched, not a basketball. Play. Yeah. She watched her daughters play, but that was about it. But she said, she goes, well, he had a lot of points, but he's not selfish. He really shares the ball. And I'm like, yeah, that's the crazy part, right? He's not a selfish guy. He doesn't hunt shots. He just is patient and does what he has to do and finds the open guy, makes the right play. We could, talk about some of that at the end of the game as well.
Yeah, I thought that was Matt Stevens did a story, and Matt will be on later, about, how it wasn't all about the shots. And I thought that was probably the best way to describe Keaton Wagler is when Purdue tried to take something away, they had to give something up defensively, and he would just go to that and go, "Okay, fine, we'll let him do it." And I just thought that was an interesting look into Wagler's psychology. And then if you listen to the Eye on the Illini that was out with CJ Moore talking about Keaton in high school, because CJ Moore is a writer for The Athletic. His son played on the same high school team. He talked about that teamness and how he doesn't hunt for shots. And I think that came out ironically in a game where he scored 46.
Yeah. But again, on 17 shots.
Yeah.
So it's real impressive. So if you kind of look at this, and that's the one thing when we saw him play, and I knew the one thing I said, and I'm sure it's on the message board somewhere. One of my things was I said, I think he'll be the best shooter on campus when he steps on campus. I really thought that he could shoot the ball. And so it's not surprising he shot the ball. But he was so understated even on the AAU circuit. But the one thing that happened, he won back-to-back state titles. And his AAU team the last summer had some ungodly record like 38-4 or something crazy. Now,
but it wasn't a shoe company.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
But they won. And he's a winner. Yeah. And that's what he does what he has to do to win. So if you kind of break down those last few minutes, you see they were getting the switch with Clough. And at the, they actually scored. Here's the wild part. Everybody's like, bashing Painter for he should have switched sooner. He should have changed his defensive coverage sooner and so forth. But there was a reason he was afraid of it, right? So what happens is down the stretch, and I wrote about this in my rewind on Illini guys, but so down the stretch, they started hedging, right? So they're going to do a hard hedge and they're going to make Wagler give the ball up. So he immediately hits Ivasic, and Clough is chasing him and gets caught, cutting, and boom, wide open three. Then we have hockey assists where it ends up going to whether it be Jake Davis, or also he hit Jake Davis on the weak side, who Jake makes a nice play with the head fake and then pulls. Merkovich got it on the hockey assist. Then Ivasic gets another three on the pick and pop. So, but Purdue then on one of those plays, and the second Ivasic three, Purdue did a pre-switch. So basically, whenever the big guy ran up there, they just left Braden Smith there to cover that big guy, and the other big guy would chase. It was almost like that happens in Euros. I actually think that's the way you need to defend Purdue moving forward. When I watch on film, that's one thing I would do. If I would help from the side and then have the guy chase the shooter in the corner who's running over the top on Smith. So you force him off the 3-point line, you get over the screen. But that's beside the point. But one thing I like, but then you see him, he's patient. He doesn't take that one. And he says, no, never mind. You go over here. So somebody's going to drag with you to the weak side. And then we're going to have another guy set this. And we're just going to be patient. We're going to call up the guy. We're going to get the matchup we want. And then we're going to go. And I thought it was effective. And then the last play, the last basket he hit, which was the dagger, that 2-point floater that he hit. If you watch, Clough hedged. But he left early because he was afraid of the Ivasic three from the weak side, knowing that they had shooters in both corners and then both on the opposite wing there on the wing and the corner, and then a shooter in this corner. He has limited options, right? So what do? Well, I got to get back to that shooter. And so he leaves just a second early. He gets downhill, he gets to his spot, and he hits his floater. Just really impressive basketball and a great read. It's just those little things that make him such a special. Special K. That's my new nickname for Keaton Wagler. So there you go.
Well, I tell
you can use that one.
Yeah, there we are. Special K. Yes, and I will tell you, Brad Underwood warned us about this in his first and second year of being coach when he said he was looking for positionless basketball and everybody on the floor needs to be able to shoot. So he clearly had a vision of where he wanted to get to. He just needed the transfer portal and some good recruiting and some access to Europe to turn it into reality. but this is what this is not a surprise. I mean, he laid it out early in his tenure.
Yeah, no question. But I think when you get guys like, you can't turn down a Kofi Coburn who doesn't really fit this style, but you take him because he's a stud, right? He's a he's a college star. But yeah, I think he likes this style of basketball the best. I think he's most comfortable coaching this style of basketball right now. And also, I think he's been influenced by new age basketball because he's got young guys like, Tyler has done a fantastic job, and he's got, and defensively, and I know Purdue scored at a really high rate yesterday, but I did like some of the things they did defensively, where they're switching from zone to man. They matched up out of the zone. They ran some matchup zone. They did a better job of, doing some things. And you consider they didn't have Kylan Boswell, who's their best perimeter defender.
Yes. It's
still pretty impressive. I mean, I thought Trey Coffin-Wren hit some really tough little hook shots and things like that to get his points. And I know he had, but reality, he was 6 of 8 from the floor. Almost all those were like balls that literally bounced around the rim 16 times and fell in from like 12-foot hooks. I mean, you can't necessarily. Sometimes they do that. Sometimes you're gonna. So when they make tough shots, and I even see somebody said earlier on this, like, you need to teach Petrovic to play a little bit like Braden Smith. He does play a lot like Braden Smith. Here's the difference. Braden Smith plays with supreme confidence and doesn't hesitate. And also he's got there's nobody like who's uber efficient like Keaton Wagler on his team that you're going to play ahead of him. But Petrovic does do a lot of those things. But Braden Smith takes a lot of bad shots. And I don't mean in a bad shot in a sense that I don't want him taking them. He takes a lot of those pull-up twos. He shoots fadeaway twos. Now, the difference is he makes them. I mean, what he made yesterday, some of those shots he was making, he finished 11 of 16, 2 of 3 from 3 overall. But, he was 9 of 13 from 2, which is good. It's a fantastic percentage. And most of those, except for a couple layups, are, fadeaway pull-ups over Stojakovic, things like that. Even the ones a lot of the ones he missed. So really, really, I don't know that you necessarily want a guy who you have to be really good to take those shots. You know what I mean? Like you have to be a really good player and have a ton of confidence to take those.
And obviously Petro doesn't have that confidence because he just, to be honest, he got here late. Then he had the hamstring injury, and then Keaton Wagler turned into the best freshman in Illinois history. You put those three factors together, I don't know that it's a big reflection on Petrovic as much as it is the circumstances that he's in. I hope he's going to be here next year. In today's world, you assume somebody's going to go, I'm going to go somewhere else. I have no inside information, but I do think if Petrovic were to stay a year, and be here next year, I think he'd have a heck of a season, but that may not be fated to happen.
Agreed.
The other thing about Smith that was incredible is when he was hurt and they amputated his leg on the side and then he came back in 2 minutes later. I got to be honest with you, Brad. We joked about it on the podcast. As a guy who's rolled ankles, and sometimes I've been like unable to walk for 2 days. Other days you roll an ankle, you get back up, you go back in. But I generally felt the difference, and I didn't roll around as if I was dead on one that I was going to play 2 minutes later on. Just me.
Yeah. No, I do think probably a lot of times what happens in those situations is a fear, like you think it's hurt. Yeah. And so you panic a little bit. And then there was also, he had the benefit of a timeout. He had all those things. So he could, he got a stoppage in play and so forth.
They airlifted him and he got back in time to play.
Yeah. You never know. But yeah, I will say that, he looked fine after that.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
He looked like he was moving pretty well.
Now, the other thing I wanted to go to, you're kind of the master of analyzing all the different statistical measures that are out there. But I just wanted to look at the Ken Palm. And yes, Adam, we should bring back Kofi for 2 more years. I think he only has. I think he only has. Does he have 1 year left or 2? Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, just one. He played 3, right?
Yeah, so I think he's only got 1 year left, but I'll take him. But let's take a look at this because Illinois has moved up to 4th overall in the Pomeroy and behind number 2 Michigan State, who I got to be honest with you, you and I are kind of people in the Illini fan base get mad at us because we refuse to bury Tom Izzo. I don't know why people want to keep burying Tom Izzo. The guy's got more lives than any cat you've ever seen. His teams are going to be good until like a year after he leaves. So that's just the way it is. Purdue's up there and Nebraska, who I have been much lower on than anybody else. They had an interesting challenge where Minnesota literally at the half forgot how to shoot. And so basically the Minnesota that came out in the second half couldn't hit the broadside of the barn. It turned out to a blowout. But the Big Ten looks like this could be the year that they may make a run at actually getting the elusive title that they haven't got since Izzo last won one in 2000.
Yeah, I agree. That interesting. You look at the KenPom numbers; they got 5 in the top 12. It would not shock me for this week in the AP poll to legit have them have 5 teams in the top 10 in the poll this week.
Just like football.
Depending on, I mean, it's really, that is true. Kofi would have the COVID year, so you're right. So he still had that, so he would have 2. But anyway, so no, I do think that it's impressive that they were able to what the Big Ten has done. They've become much better as a basketball conference. But I think the top 5 teams here have really separated themselves in a respect. And I don't even know. I mean, Iowa is probably the clear 6th, I would say, in the Big Ten.
Yep.
But when you kind of look at it, like, I mean, you got your, we look at projection, you're looking at projections, Ohio State, UCLA, Wisconsin actually playing pretty well right now. So let's not forget them. But Wisconsin, UCLA, Ohio State, Iowa, I think all those teams are probably teams that are looking at, being in the NCAA tournament, those 9, along with that top 5. But that top 5 seems to have separated themselves a little bit, both in analytics, also in rankings. And so I think it's going to be intriguing to see how it closes out. But a lot of it is going to be 2 things. The teams at the top finding a way to win the games against the teams lower, right? I mean, you got to beat those bottom teams, win all those games. Then it's going to come out to basically who wins the games between those top 5.
Yeah.
And then, Illinois, that's why this is such a huge win, because there aren't many teams that are going to win this year. Probably, maybe I'm going to have to eat my words, but Purdue is a really tough place to play. And still, you look at it, Nebraska and Iowa and Ohio State all still have to, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Purdue still Michigan and Michigan State both still have to go to Purdue to play. And that will and Wisconsin does too. I think that's going to be a hard place to win, and so, so if you win one of those games, obviously you steal one there. And I mean, Michigan still has to go to Michigan State. They still have to go to Purdue. They still have to go to Illinois. And then they have Michigan State at home. They have to go to Iowa, which is not an easy game.
Not anymore.
So Michigan does have a tough schedule. They still got the neutral site game with Duke, which should be a lot of fun. But they go to Ohio State too, which is always a weird game. So Michigan's probably got, in my opinion, the toughest remaining schedule of road games, but how it's going to play out, I do, so I think there's all 5 of those teams have a legit shot still at the conference title. I think the team that just continues to just kind of, and you mentioned them earlier, boy, does Nebraska just fly under the radar right now as a team that has beaten Michigan State. They've beaten Illinois. They still go to Michigan. They've got Illinois at home. They have Purdue at home. And then they have Iowa twice. And but they have a lot. Their schedule sets up really nicely to have a chance. If they can win their home games against Purdue and Illinois, they're in a really good spot to win the Big Ten. Who said that? Who thought about that preseason?
Yeah, I did not. So I did not see that coming at all.
Be better. I did think they would be better, but I did not think they would be 20-0.
Yeah. Just
So.
goes to show you Hoiberg can coach, and if you're a college, if you have college aspirations, don't give up that job to go be a Bulls coach. The other thing is I did lose my bet that I made on the Sports Spectacular, so now I'm going to have to go to Louis Pizza and have an entire pizza and a family size salad myself. Since I said I did say I would do that if Illinois beat Purdue. So my wife is going to get stuck watching.
What? Wait, you said something else. You said something about if Illinois shot more free throws than Purdue or something. Did you make something like that?
I might
Weren't you
have
going to run
said that
naked
too.
through this?
Yeah, no, that nobody needs to see that in America. So no, that's actually prohibited.
But you did say something about eating like pizza or something for.
Yeah, I
for
did say
Illinois.
I'd eat an entire pizza and all of them myself. If I tried to make it a win-win for me.
Yeah,
I get the Purdue. Illinois gets to Purdue. I will tell you that was the most satisfying as an Illinois fan. I don't know that there's a more satisfying win than winning at Purdue because folks, and I'm not trying to diss the other places in the Big Ten. I don't know that there's a tougher place to play because you come out of there for a basketball game, and I don't know if they pipe the music through the speakers and the stuff to make it even louder. But you come out of there feeling like you just went to a heavy metal concert with your ears kind of ringing a little bit. And when you can win there, that to me, that's the toughest place there is on the road in the Big Ten, maybe even nationally. I can't speak to, all the places people play across.
Yeah, it's right up there. The one thing is like the only place that would be for me, like, I mean, obviously tough place to play all over, it's hard to play on the road, but the other place for me is at Michigan State because you generally have to beat 8.
Yeah.
I mean, because Izzo just for some reason there at Breslin, I mean, they get so many calls and, we saw that last.
It's actually 9 because Izzo's on the court the whole game.
Well, and that's the other thing. Like that dude, I mean, like we said I think it was on the radio show this week, we were talking about how, they have Michigan State has a coach on the floor in Fears and Izzo. So, yeah.
Yeah, they're just things. Before I get Matt on, Brad, are there any other thoughts that come out on this game? Because I got to be honest, I think 10 years from now, we're going to talk about this Keaton Wagler game for 2 reasons. One is it'll be a watershed moment for Illinois. And then the second reason is I think he's going to have more success in the NBA that will cause people to maybe look backwards and look at the trip to whatever Keaton Wagler NBA star, how he develops.
Yeah, I think this was one of those games that really I think a lot of people viewed Illinois as a really good team, but they weren't a team that had a chance to blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like, and now I think they're on Final Four radars. People are talking about them as they're on the 2 seed line right now. I firmly believe they're a 2 right now. And they've got some games coming up where they could actually, slide up. I don't think they can get to a 1 line unless they really have a crazy stretch or somebody like UConn or Michigan or Duke falls off or Arizona, whoever. Somebody's got to lose a lot of games. But if they get on, they can solidify that 2 with a great finish here. And you get a 2 seed, man. You feel really good about your chances. To make a deep run, maybe getting into the Elite 8, Final Four.
And then what did you think of Merkovic's reasoning? Did you listen to his quote about Underwood telling him that it'll having 14,000 people screaming at you, and then the other part is that if he didn't play, and they lost, he would kill himself.
Yes, I know.
He's going to be the best quote of any Illini player since Coleman Hawkins.
He is great. And then because I think he just says what he thinks. I mean, there's no like media savvy. Jake Davis yesterday kind of let it fly too, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like those guys, you could tell these guys really like each other. And what I like about him is there's nothing scripted. Like, I mean, it's not like, hey, you should say this in the post game. It's like, oh man, and they're not, I remember when Illinois in the Final Four in 2005, it was so cool to be around those guys and talk to them. But what they said to the media they were so good at media. They had great media savvy. And then D Brown Sr., year, great media savvy, he and James. What they said off the record, these guys say publicly. You know what I mean? Like, it's really fun to kind of see this to see this. So it's a good time. Yeah. The other thing is the other thing I would say is like I really want to, and I know that, people look at analytics and say this, that, and, they've gone down in defense. I really like that they're trying different things defensively. They understand that this team does have some defensive limitations, but the other thing, if you look back, they have had some issues with offensive rebounding, like giving up offensive rebounds, right? In a few games. Purdue was one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country. They got 3. So Illinois leaned into their rebounding advantage, dominated the glass, and I think that, so in kind of going around full circle with all these things, they know who they are. And this is a team that understands who they are. Even without Kylan Boswell, they kind of understand what they are, what they can do. And so it's really impressive. Now, can I say my one concern coming out of this game?
Sure.
My one concern is Stojakovic struggled to be kind of a guy they played through against Purdue. I thought he would have some good matchups, but he struggled in that area. But they're going to need, and Wagler is fantastic, so you don't want to play through him, Stojakovic much, but you got to give Wagler, you can't play every possession for 40 minutes
right,
and run everything through Keaton Wagler. It just can't, it doesn't work. I mean, it might work for a single, it's not going to work long term. So I'm hoping against Washington, they're able to do some different things, get some more guys involved, and maybe get Wagler a blow here and there, just so he keeps his legs. I thought he was really tired at the end to the game. He made some plays.
Too. Yeah.
But I mean, I was tired watching him. So I can understand. But I would like to see them. That's the one concern I have is kind of finding that. And then there are a few little things like where I feel like defensively at the end of the game, this is where they made some, how do you say, some poor decisions, like leaving their feet on the 3.
Stojakovic did it multiple times.
He did. He left his feet.
He has to trust he's 6'7" and Braden Smith's 5'11", and he has 8-inch longer arms.
Yep.
Stay on your feet,
Yep. No, exactly. No. And that's Seth talks about that, but yeah, that's for sure. But that's also, we talked about that. Like when they switched, that's why Wagler had the matches. And then when they stopped switching and they went into rotation, then Illinois is going to get open threes because they can't defend them when you're trying to take the ball out of his hands. So that's this. So if you missed that, it was, we kind of broke that down. So, but
perfect.
Yes, that's it. So I'd like to, some little, and those are like fixable things, like staying on your feet on defense. So that's what I like about it.
Yeah. So Brad, thanks for breaking down things for us. And I know we were having all sorts of fun in the ice and snow trying to get the internet connection. But we do have Matt Stevens on, and I know Brad's got a 1,000 things going on today, Brad, but thanks for jumping on. Matt, you're on now. You were there in that loud Mackey Arena. What was it like watching? Like how was the crowd by the end of the game? Because I think what we got from listening to comments, and reading comments was, I think pretty much 95% of Boiler Nation, they weren't even concerned Illinois was going to win. They were pretty certain they were going there to watch Purdue beat a Boswell-less Illinois team, and it seemed like there was a bit of a shock factor.
So was I. Yeah. I didn't think without Kylan Boswell, Illinois really stood much of a chance of holding Purdue under the point total that they were going to need to have in order to win the game. Like I thought there was going to be a huge defensive problem. And honestly, without Keaton Wagler going all 46 points, it might have been. You know what I mean? Like, but no, I don't think after what they did at Pauley, there was much of an idea that, Painter was and Painter and Purdue and that veteran core that Purdue has was going to let this happen 2 games in a row. So they have defensive issues. Purdue has defensive issues in itself. And I think Painter kind of gave everybody that indication at the end of the game, which was it's not like they wanted Keaton Wagler to go off for 46 and 24 in the first half. They were trying to make him work for it, and he did. What Painter said that I thought was interesting was he knew that Boiler fans were basically going to go, hey, why aren't you switching defenses? Why aren't you changing things up? Why aren't you making adjustments? And in the classic Matt Painter fashion, where he doesn't like to tell people you don't know what you're talking about, he kind of did it in the sense of, okay, fine, we tried to blitz him at the end, and you saw how that goes, so stop bugging me about that, because when we get into, rotations and we're really, really bad defensively, and I don't want to do it. And so I really thought there was a point. I mean, it was funny, Mike, I asked Brad Underwood the day before the game, are you concerned about Keaton Wagler's gas tank without Boswell? Because there's small little things that Bam does that allows Keaton Wagler to have gas in the tank at that last media timeout so that he can do what he does. Are you concerned about that? He just kind of brushed it off and was like, he's 18 years old. Like, he can play 40 minutes. It's not that hard. He did the Brad Underwood thing, which I thought Keaton was exhausted by the end of it. I agree with Sturdy. I really, really did, which makes the last 4 possessions that I detailed on Illini guys where he didn't, attempt a field goal, but he made the correct read and made a perfect pass and made a perfect basketball play. He had to have been exhausted, and that goes to mental too. Like, when you're tired, you don't make good mental decisions. And he was tired, and he made the right mental decision to not force it offensively toward the rim and to make the right play. And I thought that was the most important thing that he did. But yeah, I think, it was funny how people at the end weren't booing. They were just leaving early, but there was almost, maybe I misread the room of 18,000 people or whatever, but like there almost seemed to be a quiet appreciation for, our guys tried and this kid's just special. So, literally we hear this phrase all the time, hats off to you. But I think a lot of people did that as they were leaving the arena of, we have a really good basketball team here, but that kid's really, really special. So just give it up to him. Painter mentioned how Evan Turner did that in Mackey Arena a while back, and there was just an appreciation for how good Evan Turner was in that place. I felt like last night or yesterday there was an appreciation for how good Keaton Wagler was, because I turned to one of my colleagues at halftime, Mike, and I said, "Hey, Purdue ought to be up 15 right now." Like, and the fact that they weren't has everything to do with Keaton Wagler. It didn't really have anything to do with anybody else.
Oh, look, he carried that team in the first half. I thought the storyline changed in the second half, though, because his performance didn't dip. He actually played 2 outstanding halves but the rest of the Illini team elevated. And then I think the story switched to if Braden Smith hadn't played so well, or if he had been seriously injured while writhing around on the floor,
right?
Purdue could have lost by 15.
Sure.
And so to me, I thought we saw two guys battle pretty hard to lead their teams. And I thought, Wagler was clearly the best player on the court. And I also thought Illinois' supporting cast elevated themselves higher than Purdue's did.
Yeah, I think there was an appreciation for I thought in the first half, the 4 other guys in orange jerseys stood around and watched.
Yep.
And I thought in the second half, they didn't do that. I thought Merkovich at least went to the glass and decided that's how I'm going to affect this ball game. And I thought the other 4 guys still did a really good job of, I'll say the other 3, whoever wasn't guard. Braden Smith got to wherever he wanted to on the floor pretty easily, which, like, at least while I was watching, frustrated me. But I thought the other 3 guys, basically not Stojakovic and then Keaton, who were named Keaton Wagler, did a really good job defensively of either at least sealing people off and making Purdue essentially a one shot and done type of deal in the second half. Now, Purdue still shot almost 60% and made that one shot effective a lot, but I thought Illinois just did a better job on the glass and then got enough stops that it made a difference in the second half. But yeah, I think the four guys in the first half got caught sitting around watching 23. Yeah, and then in the second half they got a little bit more effective. And because I think they went into halftime, what was it, down 6 or so, and I think everybody in that visiting locker room knew that they could have been down 15, maybe even 20. And realized they had a chance over the next 20 minutes to actually pull this off. I do think that, it's interesting that perspective, Mike, because I think that Purdue fans right now are thinking, how do we get more out of Fletcher Lawyer? Like, honest to God, like, we need him if we're going to contend for a Big Ten title and make a deep run here. We need more out of him. We need more out of our guards, not named Braden Smith. And then Illinois, I think, needs, we needed more out of Stojakovic last night, and we need Bam to come back. When that happens, I think Illinois is exactly what Keaton Wagler kind of said at the end of the game, which is their ceiling is a national championship. If those two things can happen, if Stojakovic can be a more complete basketball player night in and night out, and then Boswell comes back healthy and is the exact same player in terms of intangibles in defense that they were getting before he got hurt.
I know Stojakovic isn't the be all end all on offense, but I did think when he got a few times where Braden Smith was on him, I was shocked that he just didn't go into the middle and ask for the ball. I think those are some things that are easy to when you're watching on a television, you don't get to see all the nuances of what's going on, but that looked like an opportunity area, for other than that. And then I thought the only other thing was a couple times on defense, I thought of Stojakovic, instead of just going for the fake and trying to get the block shot, would have just trusted his height differential coupled with his arm length differential. I thought maybe he could have just, played effective defense and maybe not gotten a foul or two here or there that put Braden Smith on the line. But then I go back to saying it's at Mackey Arena and Braden Smith goes to the line. What am I thinking?
Stojakovic really, like, the thing that is frustrating right now because Bam is injured is Andre. He tries. Like, I got to give the young man really credit. He does try. You can watch out there, and he's not dogging it. He's not just kind of going through the motions so that he can play offense on the other end. He is trying. He just really struggles in ball screen action, and Bam doesn't. Like, he either physically get through the ball screen or he's got enough experience and intangibles and savviness to actually understand what's trying to happen here and can effectively play it. It's just when they put him in ball screen action, either with Braden Smith or sometimes Purdue will actually do like the Reggie Millers, like double ball screen action just to get Brandon Smith the ball so that they can start something. Stojakovic really, really struggled. And I just felt like he did. So,
hey, Brad, has Stojakovic ever been asked to really kind of be a defensive leader on any team he's been on?
I don't think he's ever asked to even play any defense.
So this is good for his development, though, right?
Oh, there's no question. And I thought here's the reality: Braden Smith might be the best player in college basketball.
Sure.
So you're not asking him to guard a guy who can, when we went, if you look back, when they played the other night, they asked him to guard, against was it Maryland, right?
Yeah.
They're asking him to guard the best perimeter player.
Yep.
He did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
That guy was not Braden Smith. No. Braden Smith is fantastic, and he's so smart, and he's crafty. He understands how to do things and, how to play. And, so Smith's able to get him up in the air. He's really good at that. He does that. I mean, we've seen him do – it's not like we haven't seen him do this against everybody. He's also able to – there were a couple times Stojakovic contested. There was a fadeaway. He's going full speed down on the baseline. Stojakovic did a great contest, and Smith just went up and hit about a 12-foot fadeaway on the baseline,
sure,
which you are saying never shoot that shot.
Right.
And then it went in. Yes. Or no. Yes. Good shot. So, I think that, sometimes we can say, oh, he got exposed. He's not going to see anybody like that again this year. I mean, there's because he's one of one as point guards in college basketball. He's the best guy. I mean, and the other thing is you can't really help up. As I talked about, what I'd like to see teams do was use kind of a more of a Euro style where they help off the guy and then they chase down the shooter with the guy who's guarding the ball. And that would be because the way when they had set that high ball screen, especially coming down, they got the shooter in the right wing. Because also the Meyer kid's really good.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Yeah, I mean, Meyer's really good. So yeah, I mean, Smith's just Smith's just a great player.
Smith.
To be honest, they're hurting because, and you mentioned this, Matt, Fletcher Lawyer is not playing well like he has in the past. He's not making open shots. This looks out of sync. And I was worried when he hit that. He had the 3 free throws, and then he hit the early 3, and I was thinking, okay, this is going to be bad. But then he just disappeared, and they couldn't even play him down the stretch.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that I noticed too is that Purdue's one of the rare teams still where, like Sturdy said, you can help on that ball screen with Braden Smith, and you probably do need to help Andre a little bit. In the way that I say you don't need to help Bam, because Bam will get through it, right? I mean, he'll either physically get through it or just help him a little bit, because Purdue's bigs still aren't a threat from the perimeter, from that outside spot if you want to throw it back. And if you flip it on Illinois, you can't do that on Illinois because Tommy is a perimeter threat and Z is a perimeter threat. And if they do it with Jake Davis, he's a perimeter threat. But Purdue still runs an offense in which, like going back to like when they had Edey, like Edey would come up and set that screen, or they would play the double big with Trey Kaufman-Renn and Edey, and Kaufman-Renn would go up and set that screen. But if you notice that even when Kaufman-Renn catches the ball at the elbow, not even at the 3-point line, but at the elbow, he's not taking the shot. Like, you know what I mean? That's the offense. Mm-hmm. It's a difference that, like, I thought yesterday that, like, Illinois could have helped a little bit. But, I think they're still trying to play like a lot of teams that they're going to play the rest of the year, because they don't play Purdue again, are going to have a perimeter threat in that 4 or 5 spot. So I don't think they want to get in the habit of basically blitzing the guy with the ball. So that's cool. That's fine. But I'm just saying, I'm comparing like what Illinois has to do right now defensively with Andre to like what they had with Bam, which is just not fair. Right. Cause I mean, like you just said, Mike, at Stanford and Cal, he was never asked to do anything like this. He was hidden on defense. You're talking about a guy now that's got I remember I wrote about it in Illini guys that like he's been given so much responsibility right now because of Bam's injury. But no, I think that was the key, is that Bam's injury to me was what was going to allow Purdue, I thought, to get 90 plus. And
I think Bam's injury is an opportunity for Illinois to get significantly better because they've got to fill that void. And then I keep looking at Stojakovic. When this season started off, we all were like, well, Stojakovic and Tomislav will go pro this year for sure. And there's a part of me that says if Stojakovic was to stay another year and work on his offense, obviously everybody can get better. But my goodness, if he actually developed the ability to play some defense, it's those guys in the NBA that are 6'7" who can play defense. They can play forever. I mean, they can play for as long as their body will take them. And if I'm him, boy, that's something you got to think about. I don't know, Brad, am I getting a little too optimistic here? But I think he's got an opportunity to make a lot more money with just a little bit of skill development.
No, I agree. He needs to knock down some more jumpers, but the open threes, when he gets that down and then he builds up the defense, he's got a chance. The one thing I would say is there's a long season left to go.
Exactly.
Who's staying, who's going? There's so many things that can play into that. And I think if we're starting to worry about Keaton coming back, though, let's just kind of put a pause on that and say, enjoy the NBA, sir, and have a great, time, but just enjoy him while he's here. It's interesting to see a guy like Stojakovic, who's also has always been a high usage guy, right? I mean, so he's used to having the ball a ton. And I'll be honest with you, when they recruited him to Illinois, the theory was, and he's still being used at a pretty high rate, but last year at Cal, his usage percentage was like 28.3. It's down to 26.1. But if you go over the last few games, what you see is there's been, he had really good usage against high usage against Maryland, right? But if you look at him overall, you're not seeing, you don't see as much of that like yesterday. I mean, he played and he was out on the field, but he's 17% of possessions, even 28 against Maryland, but then 14 against Minnesota, 13 against Northwestern. So he's not got the number of usage. So I think he's a guy who has to, maybe to be comfortable, that's his next role, is being able to be a role player and be a guy who doesn't have the ball as much and has to be a little more efficient. So we're watching a guy develop in front of us, but to have another guy who can go off like that and score 31, you had different guys go from 31 and 46 in back-to-back games. Like 2 guys went off. That's really impressive. And the other thing Matt was talking about was the spacing of the bigs. It's in today's day and age, if you're going to make those pocket passes and those passes that Smith makes, you have to be really, really good to those rolling bigs. And he's really, really good. It's much easier and I don't say this to diminish what they do, but it's much easier to make that pass, like throw a little drag over and then throw it back to that big guy because they double teamed you. And then you have a guy who's on the 3-point line who can just knock down threes at a high clip like Tommy.
Sure.
I mean, and so it's when you don't have that, it's a little bit harder. And that's why that's why it's impressive how good Purdue is offensively. Obviously, Braden Smith's the key, he's the head of the snake. But did you think, Matt, you were there live, it seemed like a lot of Purdue's baskets, I mean, points in the paint were 44-14.
It was incredible.
Yeah, but Trakoff and Wren hit some really tough little hooks from like 12 feet that hit every piece of rim and rolled in. One of them hit the back iron, wedged and fell in. I mean, it's like, those aren't even like, we talk about defense, but those aren't bad shots. Those aren't shots you're upset about them taking. Obviously, they need to force him to his other shoulder, and they try, but he's so good at getting to his shoulder that he gets there. But it's a different thing. Today's analytics are all about the threes, and they play a little different style. They take a lot of mid-range shots, but they're still really, really good offensively.
Yeah, those weren't the ones that frustrated, I think, the visiting bench. The ones that frustrated the visiting bench was when Braden Smith got 2 feet in the paint, and then it ended up being a layup or a dunk. Like that's what frustrated them, is that I don't mind, like, he's going to get to wherever he wants to get to probably, but like, don't let him, the whole idea to me, it seemed like, was just don't let him get 2 feet in the paint. Like, don't let this 5'10" kid get 2 feet in the paint, because it's either going to be a layup or he's going to throw it up to a big and it's going to be a dunk. So that was, but I'll just tell you this, is that, like, I felt like, and Brad, you and I have talked about this, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, I think at Bragging Rights, where that seemed to be the genesis of this, where it was, okay, let's just let Keaton Wagler be on the ball, like, all the time. Like, he's our guy. Because I assumed that, like, when the going got tough, we're just going to let Bam have the ball. Well, now Bam's out, but, like, it seemed like that genesis really has helped, because I was there live, Sturdy. I didn't even see Jake Davis open before Keaton Wagler jumped off of 2 feet and hit him in the corner. Like, I didn't see him, and I don't know in that traffic how he saw him. Like, and so this kid is just making plays that you just don't. He turns 19 on February 3rd. Like, you don't see 19-year-olds making that type of read and that type of play against a defense that's not a, it's not a high school defense. Like, even when they go to what Painter didn't want to go to in that last part of the game, and it bit them for 12 points, they're still effectively rotating like a college defense, a Big Ten defense ought to. So he's seeing stuff that I didn't even see Jake Davis in the corner. I swear, I thought he threw it out of bounds. So he's just making plays. And, like, to your initial question, Cags, sometimes cliches are cliches for a reason. Those people know what good basketball looks like at the end of the day. There's a lot of homerific stuff that goes on in Mackey Arena that makes me want to vomit, but like they do know good basketball. I think there was a quiet appreciation for what they saw on Saturday afternoon, even if it was in an orange jersey, because if you like leave that arena a Boiler fan and you go like, well, we tried everything, and the son of a gun went for 46 and then had probably 3 of the best passes at the end of the game that won Illinois the game, and there's nothing we can do. Like, so I think there was a quiet appreciation for what they saw.
Yeah, no, that's good. So, folks, we appreciate you tuning in. We threw this together because I know Brad was internetless yesterday. Internetless, yeah, I think that's a word. And then Matt was stuck putting ice skates on his car and trying to get back to Central Illinois. So we wanted to give these guys an opportunity to talk to you a little bit about the game. Ked and I tried to hold down the fort as much as we could. Marcus is in the midst of AAU season. So somehow a bunch of kids from Dunlap had to go to Chicago in that weather and play basketball. So I would give Marcus some grief about it, but he's too big to do that too. So I'll just talk about it here where he's not on the podcast to get me. But we will of course be back with our coverage.
Like, I just wish you to know.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
going to text
yeah, hopefully he doesn't watch our podcast unless he's only when he's on it.
I just tried to drive in it today in Peoria, so like we might not want to laugh. Like let's hope Marcus got home safe and sound.
Yeah. Well, that is good. That is true. But we'll be back with coverage of the Washington game, which will be on Thursday night. That's an 8:00 tip off. So and then of course next Sunday will be the Nebraska game on the road. So that'll be another tough game. And then Illinois plays Northwestern at home. Northwestern is never an easy game. And then travel up to East Lansing for Michigan State. And then they have Wisconsin. So the next 4 or 5 games, you've got some tough ones there. There's no easy W's in the Big Ten, or maybe only one right now. So it will be it'll be a tough few weeks for the Illini. I think they've got the talent to win any game, but now they got to go out and do it on a consistent basis. If you enjoy this, go to IlliniGuys.com. You can subscribe for 27 cents a day. Folks, you waste that much money on a cup of Starbucks coffee, and yeah, it's like 2 weeks of our product, maybe 10 weeks, maybe 3 weeks of our product. Please go ahead and join us. We've got our message boards. So that way, if you got a question,
I think a Starbucks cup of coffee may cover the whole year, Mike.
Yeah, I don't drink Starbucks. So yeah, I don't drink coffee. So I try to
limit macchiatos or whatever.
I limit my addiction to Coke Zero. But basically, you can get on here, and the message boards, you can actually, if you read an article by Matt, you wonder what he means, you just ask him the question on a message board, or Brad or Larry or Ked or myself.
Thanks, Mike.
And then you have the game room, which is definitely one of the more dystopian futures, where you can watch people panic in the moment or be excited in the moment. It's really fun. It can also be a challenge because emotions run so high and low in the game room. Please join us.
How about yesterday? Look at that game room from yesterday.
Yeah. It went from like Civil War to Utopia in 5 minutes. But it's always exciting.
Keaton Wagler bringing people together, folks.
Yes, he is. But I don't know if Ked calls everybody a hater, but nonetheless, maybe it's if it always happens, maybe it's how you're how you're asking the question. But anyway, join on. We'd love to have more people join. We got thousands of Illini fans there. We'd love to make it thousands more. $99 a year, good deal. You can also subscribe to the IlliniGuys.com YouTube page. We're rapidly approaching the 2,000 mark. Love to hit 2,000. Please subscribe there. Anytime you can, you forward our stuff out, give us a good review. That is awesome as well. And of course, we will be here for all the things that all the big Illini moments we're here for. So until next time, folks, go Illini.